Hi everybody, Kate Haley here with Glazer's Camera. How are you all doing today? I hope that you are having a great day so far. Today we continue online presentations and conversations with brand ambassadors from all over the country. And for this session, we're going to be chatting with Tamron Ambassador Nader Abushhab. And he is going to talk about why we're creating the photos that we create. So digging deep into creating photography and why we do it. Before we get started, just a couple of quick notes. As you know, we're hosting PhotoFest this year. This is our 13th year hosting PhotoFest. Woo! Party!
Lucky 13.
And we're doing a little bit of online programming, and this weekend we have a lot of in-person programming, and including we'll have vendors in store on Friday, but most of the vendors will be in store Saturday and Sunday. So a great opportunity to come in, say hi, check out new gear, try out lenses or cameras or camera bags, whatever you're kind of in the market for. Take advantage of the best sale of the year. And there will be some special Tamron bonuses. I can't talk about what they are, but they will be available this weekend. And you'll get to meet up with Ben, who is our Tamron rep, who will be in store with us on the weekend. He's also going to do a portrait photo walk on Sunday. So lots happening this week and weekend, and we hope that you're able to join us for as much of it as you can, or all of it. You know, we're here, we're ready to party and talk and share about photography or filmmaking, whatever your jam is. Before we get started, one thing, if you have questions during this presentation, we really do want to hear from you today. This is a little bit different in that Nader does have a presentation, but he wants to hear from you while we're doing this. So if you have questions and comments and things like that along the way, get those posted in the YouTube chat or in the comments on Facebook so we can get some conversation going for this one. Ben from Tamron is also going to be in the chat on YouTube. So if you're posting questions there that are kind of Tamron specific, he'll be helping us out with answers to those. All right, with all that said, I'd love to formally introduce Nader, who is going to be leading our presentation today. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here too. I didn't ask this before. Do you have like a little about you in your presentation, like a little intro to Nader and what you do?
I was just going to talk about myself for a little bit. So
Okay,
I have a
perfect.
picture of myself in here, so we can get to that screen, and then I can just introduce
Awesome.
myself a little bit further,
All
if you'd
right,
like.
let's do that.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about the why in photography. And hi, I'm Nader. There it is. There's my IG and my website if you want to connect at all. But I am a portrait commercial fashion photographer located in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been professionally in the industry for about 8-9 years, and I've had a blast doing it. I started as like the friend in the group who was just taking photos on a disposable camera back in high school, and just kind of kept going with it, and eventually was doing in-house video production about 10 years ago now. I had the opportunity to moonlight as a photographer, and from there kept at it and really taught myself how to make photos instead of just take them, and had the opportunity to try it full time. And it was scary first couple of years as I got into it, and then eventually started thriving, and it was a really, really cool experience, and I'm super, super grateful for this industry. And photography and image making is absolutely my passion. So just to familiarize you with a little bit of my work, I just put a few images up here. On all my images, I did put the Tamron lenses that I've been using on the bottom right of each one of them. So if you do have questions on those later, or sometime throughout the presentation, you're welcome to ask me. But you can see I love fashion, I love portrait, I love people. They definitely became they've been my passion behind photography the whole time. So again, you can see some of my client slash personal work in here as well. Keep thumbing through these slowly. and I use a wide range of lenses. I find that I happen to love like the mid-range zoom a lot, the 24-70, I love the 45s and 35s. I love those focal lengths a lot. Another couple seconds here. Let's take a look at these. And again, if you have questions or if you want to connect later, you can look at these images and I can definitely help you out with any of those questions you might have. And I think that's the last one. Yeah, cool. So the why. I've thought a lot about it more as I've gotten into photography. It used to just be learning how to make cool photos. And once I got through some of the technical stuff, you wanted to know, you started wanting to dig a little bit deeper to grow. And I started thinking like, well, every great composer is thinking about why they're adding pieces of a song to a composition. Every great director is thinking about why they're filming the scenes they're filming for the movie or the short or commercial they're putting together. Every great writer is thinking about every word they're putting in to create the proper prose to share their story the way they want to share their story with their viewers, or the readers rather. And same thing with an editor. Think about how many times you hear about footage hitting the cutting room floor. Everybody who is a creative is thinking about why they're putting the things they're putting into their creative process. And it does help you grow a lot. So I know that's a lot more philosophical than just learning how to do like a 1 light, 2 light, 3 light setup. But it became super important for me in my career. And it's something that helped me grow and continues to help me grow, because again, there's only so many inverse square law classes I could take, again, 1, 2, 3 light setups that I can take that would help me grow as an individual. So I started needing to learn, why I was even doing it. And let's see. So the why in photography can tend to boil down to some of the pre-production. If you start thinking about the whys before you get started, it's going to help you create the end goal or the end product that you're envisioning that much more efficiently or more masterfully. And it can validate, if you think about when you're thinking about the whys while you're in the creative process or before, it can even help you validate the choices that you've already made or help you pivot and really embrace the creative process. The creative process is something we have to deal with every time we pick up our cameras. So why not let it be an asset to us as creatives? And our core whys, and I mean more, again, existentially, philosophically, why do I take photos? Why do I make photos? I love people, and I love immortalizing people, and I love creating cool imagery. All these things can be some of your core whys, but if you look a little deeper, you'll find something a little bit different for yourself. I could list a million things you might agree with them, but there might be that one thing that really sticks with you. You could have a memory of photography, and that's why you create photos. And I think that's really powerful, and we need to embrace that a little bit more as photographers. Go back real quick. So there's the core whys. There's the ones that are, again, the philosophical whys, the big picture whys for us. But then there's the whys, like when you're in a job, that really can dictate your work. And there are whys that you can take direct action to. So if you're shooting something for a client and you need to light a certain way, that becomes a why for you. Why am I lighting a certain way? Because the client needs this. If you're lighting a headshot, the why you're taking a photo becomes way different than I'm lighting a fashion shot, or I'm lighting, a still life shot. And again, these are the things that you can think about that aren't technical, that can help you make the technical decisions. So what are you shooting? And I phrase this as but I mean like anybody who's reading this. Fashion. Why do I shoot fashion? Am I doing it to sell clothes? Am I doing it to make a statement? Am I trying to show that a dress has pockets? These are reasons why people create fashion images. And the more people think about that, the more powerful images that they'll be able to make. Like, think about all the statement pieces you've seen on the front of a magazine. And I used to wonder, like, why I didn't think of that. It's because it wasn't my why. Like, I wasn't thinking deeper into the scenario of making that photo. There's a lot of political statements, and there's a lot of just statements on our society at the time of each fashion cover you've seen throughout the decades. That's really, really cool. And that's a great why for a fashion. Portraits. Why do you shoot portraits? I said before, I like to immortalize people. I love the idea of capturing someone's story. You can also just want to make someone look good. And I think that's a super powerful why as well. But if you're at least thinking about that, that helps you understand that that's my directive and that's what I'm planning to do. So I'm going to light them well. I'm going to pose them well. I'm going to put them in the proper setting to tell their story properly. And you start to dig deeper than just putting them on a wall and shooting a photo in open shade. Things like that start to really, really, really dictate your process. Why do I shoot headshots? And these are just a few of the examples. I'm just giving you some of the baseline stuff that I think about and things that I shoot on a regular basis. So headshots, I'll completely light differently. Why do I shoot headshots? I usually shoot them to get somebody work. And I think most people are doing the same thing. But it becomes super important to me to really, really hone in on that aspect of it. This isn't about just making them look super cool. This isn't about, lighting them dramatically. This is about taking a clean, approachable portrait of your subject that will engage them with the people they want to engage with. Here's one that's not people, travel. So I can actually give you an example of personally from this. But why do people shoot travel? Some people just want to, again, these are all valid whys. I'm not trying to say they're not. Some people just want to show off. Some people want to document a memory. Some people want to say that they've been to an amazing location. My why in travel photography became wanting to create a memory that was more of a tactile feel of a location I've been to. So I started doing these mini collections of travel photos that when I saw them, they would remind me not only of the place I was in, but they remind me of the feeling I had when I was there. So as you can see in this picture, this is Chicago. This is my home. And this, to me, has all the grit that downtown Chicago has to offer. You got a cold, steamy morning. You have the steel. You have the brick. You even have all the cars on the bottom there. And to me, that just has every single texture that reminds me of Chicago, which I really, really appreciate. And that became my why for that. And that helps me every time I travel and do travel photos. I can think about those whys when I'm making an image, and I don't just end up at the perfect location that every tourist goes to get that beautiful shot of insert iconic place. And that to me is inspires me to always have fun and create when I travel. never get bored of it. So I gave you just a few examples of the whys and some of the things I shoot. And I shoot some of these things, but these are just some examples that you can take a look at. And why do people shoot advertising? Are you shooting for print or digital? Why would you have to think about them differently? Those are important things. Editorial, athletic, you're going to light differently when you're thinking about why I'm shooting athletic or what I'm getting out of it. Product, families, weddings, all the same thing. Boudoir, photojournalism, a big why in photojournalism would be to really showcase the real world in front of you at that moment. So you wouldn't want to like Photoshop. That's a great why of why you're just gonna get in there and document the world as it is. And to get back to it, I'm going to repeat myself a lot in this because I just really want to drive this home. The whys are going to help you look a little bit deeper, and they're going to expand what you're doing while you're creating. And you will grow as a photographer if you think about why you're making each photo. So I was going to also just go through a little bit of some of my images and thought processes while shooting them. So this is an advertising photo for a local theater here in Arizona. So we thought location or studio. Well, location, why? Because we wanted to showcase these actors who are doing a show of Chicago in a proper setting. So we found a great speakeasy kind of bar, and we had a great location for that. Lens choice, I ended up using a Tamron 24-70, and I wanted to use that to bring in more of the environment. And then lighting, I needed to light it clean because these are going to be printed. I couldn't just crush the blacks or the shadows, and I couldn't blow anything out. So I really need to dial this in. And if you I don't have a diagram for this one, but there's about, I don't know, like 6 or 7 lights going on, and everything just has its place to make this room look like it would normally. And that was my why for lighting this way, the way I did. I didn't want it to look like I lit it with like a couple strobes. I wanted it to feel like the room, and I feel like we accomplished that. And you can see all this headroom here up at the top of it, and that is also that was also a decision I made intentionally because they needed room to put copy. They needed room to put a logo. So this is a great example of, in the moment, thinking of why I'm shooting this shot and adjusting for each one of those whys. This is a fashion shoot done at my studio. I had a great team come with me, and we wanted to, so this wasn't done this is done at the studio, but not done like on our psych wall, because we wanted to make it look a little bit different. So it says location and it was studio, but it was done in a different spot because we wanted to give it a little bit more of a vibe. Lens choice for this was the 85-1.8, and the lighting for this became really interesting. I just wanted like a really glowy, hard light. So we lit hard from the top right and filled in just to create this kind of like angelic vibe. And then I even added a filter to it to really bloom those highlights even more. And again, we created this look that became angelic, and that dictated the whole vibe of the shoot, and it gave the model a great why on why she was posing the way she was posing, and the rest of the team a great why of how to continually adjust the hair and makeup to make this sing even more. This was a great location shoot. We had the assignment of shooting a set that was based off of the movie Death on the Nile. So when we were thinking of location or studio, we had to do location. and we were able to shoot over at the Phoenix Zoo, which was very, very cool. I had fortunately been to Egypt before, and I knew that over by the Phoenix Zoo, we had some of the similar landscapes over there with palm trees and little ponds and stuff, and it became the perfect location. And without this location, the shoot would have been completely different. A lens choice for this was the 85 again, but I want to explain why this was a different why for me. So I shot this particular portrait, or fashion portrait, I should say, on a Fuji GFX with an adapted Tamron lens on it. So I shot with the 85 because I knew it would cover the whole sensor. So that's more of a technical why, but it became the right why for the situation. And lighting wise, we wanted to make this look like we wanted to work with the morning light we were getting and add more drama to it. So we ended up using a fogger outside, and then we ended up also using about, I think, three big lights to create a natural look, but also you can see that really nice highlight on the side of his face to mimic the sun. And all those choices were made because we had intention with throughout the whole morning with that model. This is another great example of a studio shot. This was done with the Tamron 35, and the lighting choice for this was that I wanted to create a clean beauty shot that mimicked some of my other outdoor portraits. So I didn't want it to feel too like beauty dished or too studio, I should say. I wanted to have a little bit of a natural vibe to it. So I lit this big and worked with the model to just create this really cool look. So my why became I wanted to create a cool image too. It does happen. All right, and then back to a little bit of travel. So obviously location, right? But the lens choice for this was I wanted to just travel with something that was an all-in-one. So I ended up using a Fuji like XE3 and a Tamron 18-300 with a variable aperture. And my whys for that was I wanted to travel light, and I wanted to be able to utilize get my most bang for the buck out of a one camera, one lens setup. All right, and this is going to be the last little example shot here, but this is again another studio shot. I wish we would have had a location, but the why for shooting in the studio this time is because we didn't have like an awesome Blade Runner location. My overall why for this shot is because I'm a big Blade Runner nerd, and we wanted to recreate this picture or recreate the vibe of Rachel from Blade Runner. Lens choice for this was a 7200 because we wanted to compress everything and really just narrow things down. So I shot way on the other side of the room and brought it way in just to make sure that I was creating the most beautiful compression I could on my subject, and also bringing in that owl in the back at a nice in frame correctly. Lighting for this was all over the place. It was a mix of hard and soft light, and then again we used some fog to create just atmosphere. So our whole why was recreation at this point, recreating a vibe from something we were inspired by, and because we had that why, we could look at each thing we were doing and correct it and adjust to make the image the way we wanted it to look. So if there are any questions, I definitely want to start getting some chatting going. Okay, do you know if we have any?
We don't at this moment. I'm scrolling back through the chat room. Just some commentary about like your discussion point of leaving some negative space in the image, knowing that there could be print on it. So if you're thinking about doing like editorial magazine kind of work, those are things you want to keep in mind. But those are part of your conversations when you're prepping for those shoots too, to understand what they're going to need, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then someone's also a Blade Runner geek in the chat room. And yeah, and you used the 18-300 for that travel photo that you shared, right? I got that one right?
Yes.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to test that. That's potentially going to get added to my kit at some point. As a Fujifilm shooter, I was excited to see Tamron start coming out with some Fujifilm lenses. So I have, yeah. Did get a little question from Jim, who's one of our regular customers. When you're working with clients, how do you talk about your whys and their whys? Because sometimes go ahead. Yeah.
That's a great question. When I'm working directly with a client, I need to understand their whys. Unless they've hired me to completely give my vision to a project, I need to understand their whys, because more likely than not, as a photographer working with any sort of client, you're the problem solver for them.
Right.
And when I know what they're expecting, what they want, I can then mold my I don't want to say just mold my work, but mold the shoot to get what I want of it while helping make sure that they get what they want out of it. Now, if I have a vision and I have really strong, whys, I should say, I will absolutely just talk to my client about that and just run it by them and see if they're on board with my ideas. And if they're absolutely not, like, they are your client at the end of the day, and you need to, respect that.
Right.
But more likely than not, if you have a strong opinion about something and you run it by your client, they will listen to you.
Right. Well, they're hiring you for your skills and your vision and the voice that you can help bring to their products or business, whatever it may be.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I think we have a few Blade Runner geeks. Sorry, going back to that one. I'm just scanning the room here now. We're good on questions right now. So maybe, do you have more topics in your presentation? We can kind of dive back into that while we wait for some more conversation to come in.
Yeah. So I just was going to go back into thinking about growing as a photographer, and like, I don't know about everyone else, but I'll go into it a different way. So I started like seeing like the master classes pop up, and all these other things during the pandemic that were run by like literally some of like my favorite photographers and creators.
Yeah, Annie Leibovitz did one, I'm pretty sure. And she never teaches.
That is a primo example of one that doesn't really go into any technical stuff. She talks about everything else but technical.
Right.
And it really just puts an exclamation mark on thinking about why you're doing what you're doing and like what you ultimately want to get out of it.
Well, it's really important. Well, I mean, we're creatives. At the end of the day, we're creatives. And we get to use that creativity to run a business and help other businesses. And having that why is crucial.
Yeah. But I mean, like, more than just like, again, your why can be making a cool image or knowing your technical stuff. But if you just think a little bit deeper, then you can grow. Is what I've gotten out of any of those master classes, and also what I've gotten out of just personal experience and wanting to grow individually.
So Jim had kind of an interesting follow-up to that conversation. Do things shift for you like midway through a project or a shoot? Like you maybe started with this vision in mind and then it transitions at all?
Yeah, things you have to be a little bit flexible and pivot when you need to. So let's do like a bare bones example. let's say that I chose to use a 70 to 200 at a shoot, and then we get put into like a a 5x5 room. I'm gonna probably have to switch things up to shoot differently. So that is something that just happens, that you have to be able to pivot on. I know that's more of a technical thing with lenses, but
Right.
if he has a deeper follow up to that, like more on the client side of things, I'd love to discuss that more.
Okay. I'm just like rereading because he was talking about looks and finding locations. Those things could sometimes pivot at the last minute. I know that's happened to me before.
That's
And
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, those last minute changes can change what your end results even become. And most of the time, well, not most of the time, but at least in my experience, a lot of times it has been for the better. Like things come out working out better than you'd hope they would in some cases. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think we're good for that right now. Let's keep going on your slideshow here and see what other kinds of questions we can get percolating.
Okay. Well, I can go back to a few images, because I'm close to the end of my
Okay.
slides here.
Oh, okay.
So I was hoping to, so again, have more conversational
Right. Right.
approach to this. So so let me just go back to a few things.
Okay. Well, let me just put that question out to folks now. As
Yeah,
he's doing
please.
that, like, what questions are on your mind? Nader is an accomplished commercial and portrait photographer. We have the opportunity to kind of do a little bonus Q&A here. So what questions are on your mind with regards to that genre of photography? And maybe you're considering exploring that genre on your own. So I'll start with this question while we're waiting to see what other kinds of questions come in. What was the first genre of photography that you got into?
Um, I would say it was it wasn't quite fashion, but it was something like that.
Okay.
Remember distinctly, uh, when I started wanting to actually learn to make photos instead of just, again, take a point and shoot or whatever I had. I remember getting asked if I would take some photos of a coworker at the time,
Okay.
and they're typical kind of like take a pretty young girl out and just take some photos. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was trying to just make some cool images for her,
Yeah.
and that's why I say quasi fashion, because they're kind of supposed to be, but they're not. They're not that. They're not really selling me any clothes. Um, so it did inspire me to continue to get better at it.
Hmm.
Uh, but it was definitely, that was probably definitely where I started. And I see it all the time. Like you think of
Yeah.
any like shootout or like photo walk, that usually happens where you're taking those kind of photos.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
and
yeah, that
definitely that's a great way for a lot of people to get started, right? And
absolutely.
also when your friends or your family know that you're interested in photography, you become the person they're like, "Oh, you have a camera. Can you come to this thing and take some photos?" That also
Oh yeah, how
happens.
many weddings do you get asked to shoot?
Right. I haven't been asked to
Yeah,
shoot one in a while just because I don't have any of that kind of work on my site.
very true. But I mean, like when you're starting out and like people know
Right.
you have that camera.
Exactly.
So yeah, like I shot weddings. So honestly, why am I shooting photography helped me narrow down what I got to in
Yeah, exactly.
photography. So shooting, portraits or like, regular fashion, like out and about, or getting asked to do families and babies and weddings. Like I was saying yes to a lot of things when I was first starting,
Right.
because I was like, cool, I'm getting asked to take photos. This is kind of cool. I might maybe I'll make a little bit of extra money. And it wasn't until like finding out what I liked, and like really diving in a little bit deeper into each one of those things that I liked, is when I started seeing the results I wanted to see.
Right.
So thinking about your why you're doing photography, though I did say more like a big picture existentially, um, it'll help you say no to the right people while saying yes to the right people.
Right. Well, and that actually, I'm going to ask a question that Devin, who's actually here with me, had on his mind.
Hi.
Have you ever shut down a project because of a clash or things just weren't jiving? In your wise, between yourself and a client or your own vision versus the equipment that you had or the ability that you had, like starting out, like you said, you're taking a lot of different projects because that's giving you experience and some cash, and you're using that to help you like dial into the thing that you connect with. But since you've had that connection, have you had moments or times where there was some struggle, things didn't work out, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we'll all not have our best days sometimes.
Right.
As far as shutting down like a production, I would never. I feel like once you're there, you got to get the job done.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, like if you're the professional they hired, you suck it up and you get things done.
Right.
That's what being a professional is.
Right.
Now,
Well,
saying no to the wrong client, the client who's not right for you, I've definitely done that.
yeah.
If something doesn't line up or somebody wants something a certain way, that I don't believe I would be the best fit for, or if I, honestly feel like a conflict of interest towards, yeah, you should say no to those things.
Yeah, I know that one thing that is, at least in my experience, a key component is having these conversations and meetings or calls or whatever the case may be to like dial into what the client needs and making sure that like you're the right person for that job, and that can make sure that you're getting connected with the people that the other thing of like potentially things not working out, like hopefully that won't happen, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's, I mean, honestly, a good qualifier if like if you do any sort of questionnaire, or this is more of a self-discovery thing. I wouldn't put this on your questionnaire, but if you gave a client a questionnaire, you can ask yourself while going through it, why did they choose me? And
Right.
that'll help you understand if this is a good fit.
Yes, totally. So we have Cameron, who's joining us from Scotland,
Oh, hello.
asking, yeah, right? When you first started out in portraits and kind of realizing that was something you were connecting with, what tips can you share for building rapport on set with clients and models? And those are kind of in two buckets in some cases.
Um, Building rapport with clients and models. I mean, a lot of those building those relationships is just trying to. I'd say I'm 85% people person. Sometimes I like to just be with myself, and I think just diving into those people person qualities, like you need to ask questions. You need to get people comfortable with you, and to do that again, get to know them.
Right.
So that's the best way I can ever. It's the best way I can say to build a relationship with anybody is to get to know them better and stop worrying about yourself. And the more people talk about themselves, the more comfortable they're going to be. So if
Right.
you are working with a client, whether it's an agency or an individual or directly with a business, get to know them. Ask them questions that are more about more than just the shoot. Uh, and you'll be surprised how people connect with you, and then you'll be even more surprised on how your camera connects with them afterwards.
All right. Um, So Jonathan is asking, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about a few minutes ago. He's one of his whys is politics and activism, and as a result, he's been photographing political events and event photography. But he's trying to transition into more people portraits, environmental portraits, and photojournalism stories. Would you have any tips for him on that transition? Maybe a couple of steps that he could take to get started in that?
You said he was doing political events, and what was the first part?
In event photography. So kind of like,
Okay.
yeah.
Has he um have you distinguished like who is your ideal subject? I know you
Okay.
want to do more portraits, you want to do more environmental portraits, but honestly, if you're already, to me, like political figures are definitely people you might want to get involved with if you want to almost create like historical documentation of individuals. That to me flows right into creating excellent portraits with interesting people, whether you like them or not.
Right. Well, and maybe if you're attending these political events and things like that, make the opportunity to start to introduce yourself to
Oh yeah,
people that you might be able to have as a client, kind of put yourself out there a little bit, to see if you can kind of use those opportunities that you have now for your events and political events that you're photographing to be able to try and do more portrait work that's a little more focused, potentially with some of those same people, because there's crossover in those
yeah.
genres, for sure.
And I'm a big proponent of people getting paid for their work. But if there's ever an opportunity that you want to take on, you should be willing to offer something pro bono. You should be willing to go out there and just build up a portfolio of some amazing people who you respect, or beautiful
Right.
people if that's what you want to photograph, or just interesting people in general. And
Or
then from
find
there,
nonprofits.
build the clients afterwards.
Yeah. Nonprofits would be another great avenue too, that maybe are in the
Yes.
space that you want to transition into. And some of
And
them will have a lot of funding, but some of them might not. But I think it's, one of those things as you're transitioning, considering doing some of that work pro bono, like you said, can be beneficial. It gets you a piece for your portfolio. It gets you more time behind the camera and working with people, which helps you get more comfortable. And then I know for me, I like to just collaborate with people sometimes. So we have the paid work and then we have like the creative work. Do you do a fair bit of
absolutely.
that for yourself, Nader? Do you kind of have some balance there? I know you
Um,
said you've been really busy, but are you making
I've
work for
been swamped
yourself?
with client work.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've been swamped with some client work recently, but I absolutely make time for personal work. And personal work usually tends to be either I'm hiring out a few people or I'm collaborating with peers in my industry.
Yeah.
I will say just one more note on the pro bono thing. I wholeheartedly think that if you want to do work pro bono, it has to be your choice, not quote unquote client's choice. Like make
Oh, yeah.
sure that it's very intentional. If like you want to just make some photos of somebody or a group or an organization, that you are making that decision. You're not being told that they don't have a budget or anything like that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I just wanted
Because,
to put that out there.
right. Well, you need to
I do
value
that.
yourself. You need to value yourself, the time that you've invested in learning, and the gear that you have to buy to make it all happen, too. So, yeah, that's a really great point right there. All right, folks, do we have any other questions coming in for Nader? Otherwise, we may wrap this one up a little bit soon. Let's see, I'm waiting to see if anybody has
And
any other questions coming in. All right, I'm scrolling here. Okay, well, I think we could go ahead and wrap this up. Since we've
okay,
gone through your images and we've had a little bit of conversation around the topic, I would love to take a moment just to thank you and Tamron for your time today and for being here. We're super grateful, as always, to have the opportunity to have conversations and see work and hear the stories and how it happened with that work, all the time. It just means a lot to us, especially on a week like PhotoFest when we can't have everybody here with us, because we are still dealing with this little pandemic going on. Um, I do want to thank everyone for joining in for today. We have one more live broadcast today at 4 p.m. on a new camera that was just announced from Fujifilm today. And this session will be up for a little while over the weekend. And if you're in the Seattle area or even Portland area or somewhere that's drivable and you want to come hang out with us all weekend for PhotoFest, we would love to have you here. We have a ton of in-person programming. We'll have our biggest sales and promos of the year happening this weekend starting on Friday. And there will be super special Tamron promos. So if you registered for this event, you should get a follow-up email with details on those promos, as well have access to those over the weekend. And if you have Tamron specific questions, Ben from Tamron will be here in the store, and you can definitely chat with him about any of the lenses that Nader talked about today. Try them out on your own cameras, and Ben will also be hosting a portrait photo walk. I believe that is currently full. However, get yourself on the wait list if you are curious about joining, and if a spot opens up, we will get you added in there. All right. Nader, thank you again for your time today. We are super grateful. I hope you have a great rest of the day. And for everyone else, we'll see you back online at 4 p.m. Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you.